we've discussed with our next guest in the past, and that topic, of course, is bullying. It's something that we want to keep at the front and making sure that we keep having these discussions, because there's been some terrible tragedies in our community and, of course, across the country when it comes to bullying. And we're going to talk in particular today about the role of parents when it comes to bullying. We're joined by Ruth Sermon from Can Mediate International. Ruth, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. And I'm sure there's many roles, Ruth, that parents play, whether you're the victim or whether the victim of bullying your child is, or your child is the bully itself. Maybe we can concentrate on the child being the bully. What is the role of the parent when it comes to that situation?
Well, as a parent, I think hearing that your child is the bully is probably one of the last pieces of news you ever want to hear.
Absolutely.
Because for many of us as parents, it's like, what did I miss? How could my child would never do that?
Right.
Not my child. My child would be no, my child. And so we have this vision of our kids, and justifiably so. As parents, we have a number of roles to play. We are the child support network, and we're the primary one. When you think of children who are, say, up to 15 years old, or certainly up till 12. They have two worlds that they exist in: home, school.
Right.
And then whatever in the community they're involved in as well. But parents are a key player in their world in those days. And so as a parent, part of my job as in that parental role is to teach life skills. We teach everything from wiping your nose to how to get along on the playground to all of the rest of it. So when we think about the families that we're familiar with, every family's different. Every family has its own way of dealing with things. But there are some key things to keep in mind. And that is, and I'm thinking back to when I was in university, and there was a thing that came out called Children Learn What They Live.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever seen that poster, but you can find it online. Just go Google, Children Learn What They Live. If a child learns with criticism, they learn to condemn. If a child learns with, and they make the link in that, in terms of what kids are seeing. So as a parent, I can sit my children down and say, okay, we're going to have a lesson on manners today. Let's practice with forks.
Right.
And then I can go to the grocery store and I can be nasty and snotty to the cashier.
Right.
Now, they're both lessons. One is a formal, let's sit down and learn this, and the other is the child sitting there and going, oh, you can do this.
Those are some of those influences that we don't necessarily, we can sit down to our kids and tell them to say their please and thank yous, but if we're in the car and we get a little road rage and smash, exactly.
Yeah.
They're learning from that too.
Absolutely.
So when they see that kind of influence, how does that impact the child?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. If a child grows up in a world where it's very rigid and rules focused, my way or the highway, don't like it, move out. Then what does the child learn from that? That power wins.
Right.
That if you're more powerful than somebody else, you're in charge and you're in control. And if you've been on the receiving end of that very forceful type of encounters with people, and parents are frequently in that mode, then they'll take power wherever they can find it. And so typically they go to school and they find somebody else that they can have power over. Or it may even be in the family where you've got an older sibling who's bullying younger siblings.
Right.
Because it gives them that sense of control. Let's say fair families where, it's anything goes. Today I'm going to be on your case, tomorrow I'm busy, I can't be bothered, do whatever you want. And it's very unpredictable. Right. And then from a child's perspective, they don't know what to expect. I come home, it's almost the same as the dynamics that you get if someone has a substance abuse problem. And you don't know if they're going to be sober, you don't know if they're not going to be sober. And of course, that's another whole topic that we could talk about. But that unpredictability leaves kids in chaos. They don't know, they're confused. They don't know when they come home if mom or dad is going to be together or losing it, if they're going to care what's going on or they're not. And so kids like stability. They thrive when they've got a set of parameters that they can count on. And so they'll create it if they're not getting it some other way. And that may be by taking control again and putting that power dynamic into the relationship they have with others.
If a parent does find out that their child is bullying somebody, what should the parent be doing immediately in that situation?
That's a tough one to answer because there isn't kind of a checklist of do this, do this, do this, do this, and
Right.
everything will be fine.
Right.
The situation's different, but I think it's really important as parents that we're very clear with our kids as to what is acceptable and what's not. In our family, we had things that are non-negotiable and things that are negotiable. Hitting other people is non-negotiable. I'm
Right.
sorry. You know, not going to happen. I won't hit you. You don't hit me. And you don't hit anybody else. Now, for me to sit there and say, don't hit your brother,
Right.
doesn't make a huge amount of sense.
Yeah.
But setting those parameters and then following through on them with reasonable consequences that are age appropriate, that fit. And if people are having trouble coming up with age appropriate consequences, there are lots of people who can help us do that. But saying, this is what I'm hearing, and this is unacceptable. This is not something that we will tolerate, and here's why.
Ruth, we're not the only influences and the only people that place rules on our children. So when we have the caregiver, the grandparents, the school, the community leader, the coaches, how do we get everybody on board with the same messaging? It seems like a very difficult task.
And it can be.
Right.
And it may not even be possible. There was actually a book that I came across at one point called Mom's House, Dad's House, where there are two different sets of rules. What you can do at Dad's house is different than what you can do at Mom's house. And in a situation where many kids now are living in single-parent families, that's not an unusual situation.
Right.
But I think kids can understand that irrespective of what grandma says or irrespective of what your coach is saying to you to do, you know what we believe in our family. And in our family, we believe people are important. And hurting other people is not acceptable. What we're talking about is creating a situation where children learn empathy.
Right.
If I have empathy for you, I won't hurt you. I may not agree with you, but I won't hurt you.
Yeah.
Empathy is something, and here's another one if people are interested. Go Google the Roots of Empathy program that Mary Gordon started from Newfoundland a
Okay.
number of years ago. Absolutely amazing program about teaching empathy to kids using babies.
Right.
And she tells an absolutely amazing story about a group of kids, grade 1, in, I'm not sure if it was in Toronto, but very diverse cultural, or a neighborhood with a lot of cultural diversity and classes with a number of immigrant children and so on. English wasn't necessarily their first language. The baby who was coming in was an immigrant, belonged to an immigrant parents, and the baby got sick and couldn't continue to participate in the program because had to have surgery. And the parents had said, listen, you know, like we just can't do this. We don't have any family. We have to figure out how we do it. And the kids took on looking after this baby.
Wow.
They actually went and interviewed the doctor at the Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto to make sure he knew what he was doing. And then they called the parents back in and said, it's okay, we've checked it out and your baby will be fine. We've asked him how many times he's done this surgery. Does he know what he's doing? What are the risks? They had gone through this whole thing. And this was a group of grade 1 children.
Yeah, and as you said, what an impact, an incredible difference it makes when you raise your child the right way. Ruth, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you on the show. If you want to find out more information, too, on situations where you need somebody to step in as a mediator, you can visit www.canmediate.com. Don't go away. We are back.